Welcome, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning,
Good
Carla.
morning.
Good morning, love. All right, here we are, week 6. I'm going to start with a little Rilke to get our morning off here. A long ripened death. We must learn to die. That is all of life. To prepare from afar gradually for the masterpiece of a proud and supreme death. A death where chance plays no part, a well-made, beatific, and enthusiastic death, the kind the saints knew how to shape. One more time with Rilke this morning. Whew, he really does it for me. Whew, a long ripened death. We must learn to die. That is all of life. To prepare from afar, gradually, for the masterpiece of a proud and supreme death. A death where chance plays no part. A well-made, beatific, and enthusiastic death. The kind the saints knew how to shape. Rilke. Oh my beloved Rilke. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, and did I share that Russian proverb with you? I don't know. I taught 4. I had 4 death events last week, so it's all running together in a big blur. But there's this old Russian proverb that says, "Death does not take the old, it takes the right." Hmm. And I love that he has this word in the poem. It's a much longer piece. So this is the short version of it, a long ripened death. So this really doesn't matter about our age. We can have a long ripened death at 5 years old, at 25 years old. Doesn't matter because what we know this from our own experience that someone could be 100 and be resisting death. We know this. We see it all around us. We see it all around us. Age does not make us ripe. Presence makes us ripe. Yeah, we'll talk a little more about that. Michael, yeah, did you have your hand up?
Yes, because this is bringing up something for me that I wanted to share and really get off my chest is that I have some shame about being so willing and ready to embrace death. And I'm not suicidal. And I love life, but I still I just always I feel shame about it that I'm so ready and willing and like would be grateful.
Mhm. And yet, I'm guessing the more you lean into that, the more ecstatically alive your life gets.
Something is happening, but I I'm leaning into it right this moment by sharing it. I've never felt the place in the moment
Yeah.
till this moment and preparing to talk with my family and to share that. And this poem seems to make it, gave me a lot of strength to
Yeah.
be able to share it.
Yeah, I'm struck with you and I having tea at some point because I'd love to share with you and any of you, but I'm birthing this mystery school for next year, this sort of 9-month mystery school of a combination of tantra and death. And it's this very thing. It's the dreaming into death, which produces ecstatic aliveness. And I think we're in really good company with the mystics who, it doesn't matter which door you enter, you can enter through the door of loving your life, you can enter the door through contemplating death, but really they sort of meet in the middle in this place, that death gives us this sort of transmission of like incredible aliveness. So I want to talk to you more about that. It's almost like you're sort of begging what's emerging. in me, in the collective, in you. And so maybe we can have some tea and riff on this a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in terms of your personal shame, you're in very, very good company in terms of the poets and the mystics who sit in this space. And so I would encourage you to find a poet that you like. Rilke's a fabulous one. Rumi is another one. There are, poets worth their salt are in the space you're talking about. They're in the causal plane. They're in the in between the wick and the flame, as we say in shamanism. They are living this, right? And so if you can find a way in, maybe it's through chants, maybe it's through poetry, maybe it's through the book that Frank Ostenkowski, or the Untethered Soul, or who else? Oh, the what's that book that Francis Weller, some of you may know it.
The Wild Edge of Sorrow.
The Wild Edge of Sorrow.
Oh, yes.
The Wild Edge
Yeah.
of Sorrow. There you go. Find it through art. That's my advice to you. Find it through art.
Thank
So
you.
last week we talked at length about my journey at Earth Haven regarding death, and we talked about lots of different death options. We talked about death forms, this disposition of physical body after death form, plus the death certificate form. So I'm going to go ahead and just stop sharing and see if what's alive for folks. How are you integrating that piece? What's there for you in terms of what you're going to do with paperwork and what you're thinking about for after death? Anybody want to share? Brenda?
Yeah, it seems like such a big task. Susan and I have decided to continue meeting once a month to support each other with our process, with the paperwork, and just try to work through that checklist and the knockbox, and I feel like that's just gonna be really important to have support. So that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, so continuing your buddy relationship and working through the Knox box, which gives you another form of template. Okay, let's do this, and then let's do this, and let's do this, and they have all the tabs. And so that's a way of digesting some of these bigger pieces and maybe coming at it with like, let me address some of these smaller things and then work my way towards like, what do I want to do with my body? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to say that it's kind of like the Cliff Notes version.
Mhm.
Knockbox is like the Cliff Notes version of your death. So
Right, right. Well, yeah, I love that, the Cliff Notes. And in a class like this, you get, the filled out, like, sort of emotional, relational components as well as the content. But then I do love the Knox box thing of like, okay, here's where I need to streamline, here's where I need to put my brain in action, and it helps you walk down that road step by step. That's really great. Thank you. Yeah, Carla, I love your comment in the chat. And Carla says when we were talking about ripening, our cultural norm says living to an advanced age is an accomplishment, but almost no one inquires about that aged person's quality of life. Right? Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, Meg, thank you. Symptoms of a death phobic culture, right? Maybe don't underestimate your children. I love that. Thank you. How do we, Michael, for you, and then Peggy saying something similar. And you know, maybe as we clear the dust away of this death phobia, death illiteracy, that something magical can happen in the ethers, and the people around us can be more open to these conversations, you know, open ourselves to magic. Who else wants to talk about death, after death options? After death options. Denise, did you want to say something about that? I saw you earlier.
Yes, I found the five wishes to be very helpful to think about all those things. And I think I've got all the papers together for everything. And but the five wishes, a lot of them, they're wonderful things to think about, and decide what you want to do. But there's no reason some of those should be a legal paper that's signed and witnessed, because some of it, like, sure, you want to be comfortable, but why have a list of things that you
Yes.
think might be comfortable, because maybe they won't, maybe you don't want to be kept warm, maybe you want the covers off because you're hot, or maybe you do want to eat, or maybe you don't want to eat. You don't need to write that stuff down.
Right.
I'm kind of with Michael when he said something about trusting humanity. So the people I'm trusting is my own family
Yeah.
to take care of me if that's what I'm gonna need, So I don't know if I need that, all those five wishes, because the other, you need what the doctors need to know. You need whatever hospice needs to know.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You know, one could go through the five wishes process to sort of prime the pump in a way, and then fill out these other more legal forms around your healthcare proxy or your healthcare power of attorney, and then your most form, and not even mess with the five wishes because it gets so granular. So that's certainly an option. The way that I come into it is the doorway is the five wishes. And that's for the sort of internal family, you know, for your loved ones. And then you do these legal things as a redundant piece. But you're right, it gets very granular, and we may not, there's too many variables to know what our situation's going to be like. So, yeah. All right. So it sounds like y'all are still contemplating the after death stuff, which is awesome. We can move on today. And I encourage you all to do what Susan and Brenda are doing, which is to continue to meet with your buddy. You know, you have these checklists. Even if you get with your buddy to, you know, be in a heartful place and just connect around the topic of death, even if you're not planning to get your paperwork done this time around, that's fine. Just keep deepening if that feels alive for you. I hosted this screening and discussion on Saturday night this past weekend, and I wanted to put the link in the chat and just take a moment to say it was really profound. And if they're doing this sort of screenings model now, and they're doing a bunch of virtual screenings. And somebody told me that they'd seen it. Was that you, Meg? Somebody had watched it this week or recently. There was not a dry eye in the house. Was it you, Meg, who saw it?
I tried, but I wasn't able to watch it I wasn't able to figure out how to watch it myself online, like without
No,
signing up
you
to host
can't.
a screening.
You have to watch it through a screening time, and there will be someone there to integrate afterwards. That's the model they're using right now. At some point, they will release the film and you can pay and watch it, but right now they're doing the screenings model.
Okay.
Susan, did you want to comment on this?
Yes, I do. Brenda and I both attended a screening on Friday evening.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was, out of central US. And it was mind-blowing, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impossible to see it to the end and not be in tears at some point.
No, it's incredible. And, Ethan Sisser is the subject of the film, and just so many blessings to him for being willing to have his process be filmed. But I'd say just as many shout outs and kudos to Scott, who is seeing this project through. And if anybody's ever done a project like this, they know it's a money pit and a sinkhole, and
Yeah.
it's a labor of love. And I am just so grateful, because some of us have been at deaths like this, you know, but to capture it on film and then to take it through production and to take it out into the world where people can have actual access to a highly edited product, it's changing culture, really. It's so impactful. And I do believe that most people are going to need integration after this film. I mean, I stood up in front of this audience of whatever it was, 35 people, and they were all like, I could see them all in this portal of like awe and bliss and shock and grief and not knowing how to integrate it. And so I do think the integration is really important, and how they're doing it is really great. But I will say this, it changes the conversation immediately. If you're hoping for people in your life to sort of get a quick mind meld of what's going on for you as you sort of move with this course, and they don't want to commit to a course like this, they would never do a course like this. If they're willing to watch this film, it'll completely change their paradigm. It is that powerful. So I just can't say enough about it. You know, they might be willing to commit the 2 hours for this film, but not the course, and like send it out, put it on your Facebook feed, do whatever. It's definitely worth the time.
I did put it on my Facebook feed, as a matter of fact.
Good. Great. Yeah,
And
and plenty
it's
of
really
people will be,
interesting that almost nobody responded.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
The people that were there had their lives changed. I mean, I saw it in their face. I mean, I stood up in front of the room as the credits were rolling and the lights came on, and I helped them gently come back down into their bodies. It's like, you know, the mind sometimes doesn't know the difference between what just happened on film and what just happened in real life. So they went through that process. They filmed Ethan's death in this incredibly beautiful and sacred way. And yeah, I just can't say enough about it. It's really great. So on that, let's all take a breath. Okay, this is our agenda today. We're going to talk a little bit about death community. We're going to do a psychedelics conversation. We're going to do some internal preparation, and then I'd love to save a little time at the end to get your feedback about what's next for me in this work. So let's start here with death community. You see in this course how important it is to have sounding boards and integration and conversations, and someone who has a transmission that you can sort of set your sights on. Like, this is all really how we grow and evolve and change and become the death literate, death positive, death accepting people and culture that we want. So how do we continue to do this, right? Faith communities, here's a list of suggestions. Faith communities have traditionally been, you know, the only place people can really go and have these conversations. And some of them need to update their worldview around it, you know, or access. I know that some Unitarian Universalists, you know, bringing someone like me in, the Jewish Community Center here had been contemplating that. Like, who are these different faith groups that can host a conversation at the very least, and maybe even use their facilities to do some salons or some death cafes or some other things, right? So that we can start bringing the frequency of this a little higher. Support groups and gatherings, you know, if you fall into the category of someone who is dying or who's had a death, there are a lot of support groups out there. Like my friend, my dear friend just lost her brother to suicide, and she's in a suicide support group, right? And that's very specific, and it's a very specific grief and pain. but thankfully these exist, you know, the death of a child or the death of a spouse or the death of a parent. If you can't find one in person or live near you, you might be able to find one online. And those are really, really helpful places to be in community with others who are going through something similar. I mean, going through the grief of losing a beloved to suicide is a very, very unique thing. And it's really important to get people who are aware of what's happening for that. There's also, you know, grief doulas out there. This is sort of an emerging thing. So there's death doulas, and death doulas are often at the home or by the bedside or helping the family, and the range is huge. There could be a death doula that's had 50 years of nursing experience and can be, you know, a huge resource in that way. And there's death doulas that are 23 and decided to take a course and can come and help do dishes and hold hands. And you know, it's like the whole range of skill set and age and stage is available in the death doula world. Highly recommend getting to know your local death doulas. Grief doulas are folks who are literate in the grieving process, and they can support folks, one-on-one support for the grief process, sort of like a coach or a counselor. Another way to build death community is attending deaths. Become a hospice volunteer. Hospice does volunteers. It's one of their greatest scaffoldings or infrastructures in their system is the volunteer system. Really great. Get some training. Like in our case, we have the Center for Conscious Living and Dying, and they also do trainings. Hosting events, you know, I love the idea of like doing a death and dessert party, you know, doing a potluck where everybody brings a dessert and you have a topic of conversation. I should publish a book on this, like all the different things you can do, or publish a paper or blog post. If I do, you'll be on my mailing list, you'll get it. But all the different ways you can have conversations. Rituals and ceremonies. So this is a picture of our ancestor altar at Earth Haven Eco Village, where we have once a year, we have an ancestor feast. It's right around the time of the Day of the Dead, which is usually November 1st, right around Halloween, or as the Celtics call that time of the year, the Samhain. It's a really important earth-based tradition as well. The quarterly holidays, one of the big ones. Cross quarterly holidays. Sorry, the quarterly holidays are the solstices and the equinoxes, and then the cross quarterly holidays are halfway in between each of those. And it's, you know, Candlemas, and it's May Day, right? Isn't that the next one? And then Harvest, and then so Beltane, right? Candlemas, Beltane, Harvest, and then Samhain. And for some people, that Halloween, Day of the Dead, Samhain is when the veils are very thin between the worlds, is often how it's said. And we have an ancestor feast every year where we bring a photo of our beloved dead, and then we bring a dish of our ethnic background or that our beloved dead really loved, and we share that in a potluck style, and then we eat together, and then we spend the rest of the evening talking about the stories of our beloved dead. And it's a way, even if you do it annually, it's just a way to get death literacy into the conversation. Most people love these rituals. And it really helps us get to know our friends and our community. It's a really good one to do. Also rituals and ceremonies around death in our own lives, if we're grieving, or if there's been a collective process, like grieving what we lost during the pandemic, or grieving some kind of death in our lives that wasn't a person, you know, the death of a chapter. I love the book club and movie opportunities. I updated my website pretty significantly based on some of the input that folks were wanting here. And The movie list is on there, the book list is on there, and it's not exhaustive. I mean, charting all of the movies and books about death would be endless, but there's some good ones on there and a place to start. And Harold and Maude is actually not on that list, which is one of my favorite movies. And it's this old cult classic. If you haven't seen it, it's worth doing. But like Harold and Maude is a super fun, funny, amazing, reverent and irreverent film with all kinds of edgy stuff going on in it. And there's a theme about death in it, and on many levels. Like, it's very complex and also awesome film. And like, you could have a movie night with Harold and start with Harold and Maude, and then go on to some other ones that are maybe, more pointed or more death focused. Yeah, continuing your buddy support. You have everybody's emails here, and someone could host a circle back, like, hey, let's get together. Let's do this once a month. Let's, stay on this. And then death cafes in your area or online. And as we've said before, you don't need to have some kind of copyright or something, just host a death cafe. Anything else on death community? Oh, one more thing so these Go Wish cards are really fun. I think I showed you you use the online one, but there's actually a deck, and they actually have cards, and they actually have a little instruction manual that they come with that give a bunch of different suggestions about how to play the game. And you can get a group of these decks, and you'll notice on the deck it has different colors at the top: yellow, purple, orange, and teal. And that is for a specific reason, because all the cards are the same, but you can have different groups of colored groups of people that have different scenarios. So for example, if everybody gets the instruction to make 3 piles in front of them of these cards, one pile of what's absolutely important to me, what's medium level important to me, and what's not important to me at all. And then let's say you paired the purple deck up with the purple deck, and the yellow deck up with, say there's 3 or 4 people in each group. You could give these groups different scenarios. Like, okay, purple group, you have just been diagnosed with dementia. You can only choose 3 things out of your list of the things you want. Like, go back to the drawing board and figure out what's really, really important to you, and then talk amongst yourselves, right? So this is like a way to guide a group through some death literacy scenarios, and then they'll very quickly start to see like the importance of contemplation and preparation. So these are great if you're going to host a group that's like going to get down and in it. Right, let's stop there. Any other thoughts about building death community? Susan, did you have some comments here?
Yeah, I want to comment on the Go Wish cards, which when you first introduced them, I kind of said, oh, okay, well, it's like, I mean, I couldn't see the point, right? But then actually after Brenda, and I did it, and then I took away the list of things that I had considered priorities, and I started kind of going over them and organizing them and then rewriting them as affirmations. It totally changed my perspective, and it became the whole turning point for me, because it made me realize that I could actually create my own ideal death.
Wow, I love that.
It was totally empowering.
So you went through them, and then you went back through them with like, hey, how about I try these things on as affirmations and really visualize my death in the way that meets a lot of these needs.
Exactly. I claimed each one of them.
I love this.
So if the card said, to be comfortable or to be free from pain, I rewrote it as, I am comfortable. I am free from pain.
Nice. Wow, I love that. Thank you. Yeah, so really using these cards to sort of visualize what it is, to visualize our own death in the ways that we value. Very nice.
Right, exactly. So I created it. I created my future.
Yay. Michael.
When you showed the picture of the altar um, in the last discussion you led, I suddenly realized I want to add something to the whole file I'm creating with the 5 wishes and the dementia and the not resuscitate. I have behind my desk probably 30 framed pictures of me as a baby, as a child with my parents, as a teenager, as a model in my 20s, and all through with my each of my ex-wives. And I realized that I'm going to copy them all and put them in a folder so that my kids don't have to go running to look for pictures of me. And that's what that altar reminded me of, like, wow, I could create this for them to make it easy for them. So maybe it's a little bit like that song, I'm so vain, but um, it seems to be the right thing to do.
Meg says, "Oh my God, Michael, we might need to see your model photos." Oh, I love that. You know, you might go one step further and digitize them and then have them. I've seen this at funerals and vigils. This is actually quite nice where you have an iPad set up and then the scrolling of the person's life through photos is happening every few seconds on there. And it's so touching. It's, you know, the celebration of life to just stand there, you know, with the body here and these photos scrolling. It is incredible. So that might
So for
be
me to make it myself, that seems like something very responsible. Why should they have to
exactly.
go searching?
Yeah, digitize it all and then you get to choose the photos you want on there because gosh, you don't want a terrible photo on there. I love it. Thank you, Brenda.
Just real quick to take what Susan shared, the next, an additional step is we, after creating the affirmations, then we talked about the action steps on what you would need to do so that that could happen. So for instance, if you want your dog or your pet to be in bed with you at your side, then you're going to have to create someone who's going to take care of said dog while you're dying and after your death, right? So it's, you create these action steps so that you really are able to create that, that manifest, you know, what you desire. So I just wanted to add that.
I love that. Yeah, there's sort of an internal component to it and an external component. Beautiful.
Yeah, because you know, if you're laying there, you know, semi comatose, you're not going to suddenly get up and clean the cat box, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I want to say this about deaf community. People really want to be there for the most part. You know, I find people in this course often be like, who wants to do that for me? And I will say, like, it is a huge jolt of energy. And I don't know exactly how to describe that. We can describe it in scientific terms, esoteric terms, spiritual terms. I don't know. It doesn't matter really so much. But the opportunity to be close to and give to a dying person is very compelling. And if we set it up so that can happen for people, they want to do it. They want to be part of that process. And all I can say in this brief period of time is trust me, that is true. And if you and the more you can graciously receive that, the better it is for them. All right. On that note, I am going to briefly share this amazing photo again. but I'm going to actually turn off the screen and I'm going to pause the recording because right now we're going to move into the psychedelics conversation. And I really only want to spend about 20 minutes on it, even though we could probably spend the entire 2 hours. But I'm gonna stop sharing here and I'm gonna pause the recording. Yeah, so coming back to where we are today, this is a really great segue. Richard Rudd, again, one of my great modern mystics, great heroes. When we are so aware of death, we become grateful for whatever life brings. When we are so aware of death, we become grateful for whatever life brings. So I see a request in the chat from Peggy that Brenda and Karen share their contact information. We do have the email string where everyone's emails are visible, but if Karen and Brenda, you want to share your phone numbers or other things in the chat, feel free. So let's talk a little bit about internal preparation. I talked a little bit about it as a prelude, I think last week. Again, it's a little blurring together the last week. But I think the thing to say here is that we all have an inner essence. We all know that there's a difference between an alive body and a dead body, and that is animation. Let's call that animation. We call that soul, call that self, call that divinity. Whatever words you're comfortable with using they're completely worth using. But regardless of our spiritual training, our religious traditions, we all can probably agree that there's some kind of essence, consciousness or essence within us. That's the thing we want to build a relationship with when we're doing internal preparation. Accessing our own deeper divinity, whatever that is for you. The 4 pillars that we used in our walking towards a good death are things I'm just going to go through a little bit right now. And you can come up with your own pillars. These are just guiding lights that we used as themes for internal preparation. The first one is letting go. And I will just say about letting go. Oh, you can't see the slides. Great. Thank you. Forgot to share my screen. Yeah, so this is Kimchi lying outside the week before and during the week before her death, and really going inside. And going inside at the time of death is really assisted by our hormones and our chemicals and all kinds of physical things. But if we've actually done the preparation, the internal preparation work, it's also assisted by our habit and our practice and our built relationship with that inner essence, with that consciousness in us. Yeah, so the first one is letting go. And what I want to say is incarnating is a big deal, you know, in when you dig deep enough in most mystical traditions and you can go back to the ancients, it's a really big deal to incarnate and to take on whatever lineage process is there in our ancestry, and to take on the life death cycle. Some people believe there are dozens of these incarnations, and we come and we do it again and again. Regardless of whether that's true or not, it's a sacred gift and a really big deal. And it's not easy to let go of the body. We get really quite attached to this expression. So what does it look like to practice letting go until it becomes a more familiar pattern? One of the practices is to look back at our lives and see how many things we've let go of. We've let go of different childhood phases, different adult phases. We've probably let go of marriages. We've probably let go of friendships, of jobs. And to really use the natural cycle of things dying in our lives to honor how we let go. The second pillar we called soulfulness. And that word can be replaced if that soul is not a word that you like to use. Inner voice, intuition, consciousness, essence. What is the quality of relationship with this inner part of you? I wrote this article that I wanted to call We All Die Alone. And the folks who were publishing it, I was writing for Elephant Journal for a while. It's this online journal, and they were like, we're not going to call it that. But I really wanted to sort of rename it as We All Die Alone, which is regardless of who surrounds you at the moment of your death, your experience will be between you and this infinite part of you. There's no one else that's participating in this. Doesn't matter how long you've been married. It doesn't matter how many children you've birthed. It doesn't matter. When you die, your process is going to be with this inner part of you. So how do we get familiar, comfortable, related, trusting? How do we trust that part of us? How do we strengthen and nourish and turn up the volume of this primary relationship? Talk about a primary relationship. This is as primary as it gets. Presence is the third pillar. Being a human being is so tender. We have learned to protect ourselves from painful experiences. That's part of the deal. We get initiated into trauma. I don't know why, but we do. Part of what we're here to do is wriggle and wrangle through the constraints of existence. How do we get present to exactly what our lives have been, what we've been through, where we are? And most of us probably know there's a pretty wise, vast, ever-evolving, and I will say untouched, undamaged place in us, an undamaged side of us. And yet we still have to learn how to be present with our shadows, with our traumas, with our conditioning. So there's lots of processes we can do to show up and be present. And the more present we are, the more able we are to be with the concept of death, the more able we are to be with our aliveness and the unique and absolute miracle it is, our existence. And so this last one we talked a little bit about last week, the receiving piece, which is our culture is very yang, from the yin and the yang, right? The yang is driven, productive, outward facing, assertive, right? Youth oriented, get it done, be active, stay active into your old age. Huge value in this. But we don't cultivate very often is the yin, the dark, the soft, the inward, the receptivity. So we have a culture that's like all sun and no moon, all day and no night, all up and no rest, right? So many of us had to find our way and to learn this. And the same is true with the dying process. Nothing will serve you more in your dying than receiving. Nothing will serve you more. And we don't know how to do it. Most of us don't know how to do it. So if we neglect the interior, the receptive, the quiet parts of ourselves, we will be as incomplete as if we neglect the active parts of ourselves. This is how yin and yang work. They are partners. So how do we honor aging with both? We all want to be active, maintaining our bodies until our older years. Absolutely true. We want to do that. But how do we also receive from life, from death? How do we look at receiving and developing our capacity to receive as just as important? Let me stop sharing here. So we're talking a lot about altering consciousness from outside sources. And now we're talking about really tuning in to the inner world. These things are partners. They go hand in hand. I'm feeling like doing some breakout rooms to sort of digest and integrate so much of what we've been talking about. Does that resonate for folks? Be able to sort of unpack some of this? I'm not seeing any hands. Would you rather stay here or would you rather go to breakout rooms? Let me ask. Who give me a thumbs up if you'd rather stay here and integrate and talk. 2. Give me a thumbs up if you'd rather go to breakout rooms. Michael, Misha, Karen. All right, well, we'll do some of both. Why don't we do some of both? I'll do, does 10 minutes, does 5 minutes each feel like enough time in breakout rooms to do a little unpacking, or do you want more time? Somebody unmute and speak for. Ten minutes is okay? Okay. If you don't agree with that, unmute and tell me because I'm looking at this breakout rooms sheet right now. Okay. All right, I'll do 10 minutes with a minute callback and then we'll do some more unpacking here.
Thank you, Lee. That was fun.
Was it?
Yes.
You get to mix it up and be with different people than you're normally with. So what's moving in folks? What's integrating?
For me, my intention to start when I started the class was that I was going to complete all the paperwork by the end of the class. And so my buddy has completed all her paperwork. I have not completed mine. And it opened up so much. And
Yeah.
so I was just speaking with Susan about it. Like, I'm a person that gathers and collects and gathers and collects and pulls things together. Like, this organization is huge for me. So I feel this class has just kind of taken everything and thrown it up. And there's pieces everywhere. And so I'm gathering and collecting, and will be a project to sit down and get through my paperwork. But this has just been amazing. Like, I'm almost glad I didn't do my paperwork or finish it because I'm just digesting and integrating all of it. So
I'm so glad you brought us back to intentions. I had overlooked that, Karen. Thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for modeling being gentle and changing our minds. And, the idea of like, well, that's what I wanted to do. And in some ways, that's the more yang approach. It's awesome. We need it, right? But you decided to take a more yin approach to sort of receive and gather and collect and contemplate. And that's just equally as valuable. I really love your modeling around that. Thank you. Thank you. Peggy.
Yeah, we talked about looking into like other cultures because I've always felt like Native Americans just had it together. And so I think just doing some more research because they did a lot of, mushrooms or whatever to be closer to God, however you want to describe them. So I think I'm going to do some research on that because we both touched on that. And plus, Denise has raised her children to be open. So her groundwork is already set, and it just gave me an idea to talk to my daughter, who's very pragmatic, but she has just started getting involved with God. So it's kind of like, that's a good place for me to start. So I have an opening with one of them. So, which is super helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Karen, did you have a quick response to that?
I do. When you mentioned the Native Americans, so I just wanted to say that literally all indigenous cultures across the earth have always had their medicines. And so the 13 grandmothers, I don't know if you know about that, but grandmothers from the different nations and tribes across the world would gather. And in my lineage of medicine work, one of the grandmothers was telling us stories about how they would all gather and like in Mexico, and then they would do the mushrooms there, or they'd go to Africa and do the iboga there. But all the grandmothers were like, well, what's your medicine? And can we have some more of that at our next gathering? So check into all the indigenous cultures and their medicines and way of being with God.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love picking up on what Karen was offering, which is, can we come back to intentions? Can we tune into our initial intentions? And where are we in our hearts, our minds, our bodies, our souls? Where are we with our initial intentions? And how might those have changed? How might we have? This is the difference between setting an intention and a goal. A goal is something you have to achieve or you feel like you're failing. An intention is somewhere you set out to sail and you're willing to be influenced by what's happening around you, right? An intention is more soul guided. It's more guided with the complexity of life, right? So that's why we use the word intention. How has your intention shifted? How did you set a different course than you even imagined? Michael.
Well, I just love that you're talking about soul guided, because in these, I don't know how many weeks it's been that we've been together, the booster rockets of my soul have increased in velocity. And when I speak in I have to determine, am I speaking as I, the human, with my DNA that my soul rocket boosters are evolving and bringing my humanity, which carries so many parts that have been held belief systems and wounds and limitations, and my soul consciousness from the infinite consciousness has been so strengthened that that's the I'm speaking from. So I hope somebody understands this kind of schizophrenic I syndrome that I'm having. But definitely the soul yeah.
I was gonna save it to the end. I was gonna ask y'all for testimonials and maybe a video testimonial, but I think that one takes the cake. The booster rockets in my soul have increased in velocity. That's that's a quote from you, Michael. That's the best testimonial there is. Thank you. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say, Michael, is like something's come online in you. Something has sparked in you a greater sense of your own expansiveness, essence, divinity, soul. And that is something you didn't expect and has been happening and has been guiding this process for you. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes, and I just want to add, and I said it to Brenda, and nobody has said it yet. Why? I mean, I am the only embodied male
Mhm.
here, and maybe being with the feminine, embodied feminines, um, which you give birth and death. And I have a sense, I've always said, if there's one thing I'm envious of not having been made a woman, it's that I can't give birth, because that just seems so amazing. Um, but I am giving birth to my soul. And this workshop has helped me to give birth to my soul and become the soul that I am.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh, I'm just typing that. I love it. You are such a bard. You are such a bard. It just like pours forth from you. I love it. Thank you.
Thank
As a
you.
bard myself, one bard to another bard. Brenda, are you going to check in about intention?
Yes. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say that my intention was to update my paperwork when I signed up for this. And oh my gosh, everything has changed. Everything. For me, it's now about sitting with the process behind and between the paperwork. Okay. And about what's happening inside of me as I contemplate these different things, and how do I then talk about this with others and share my process, and maybe share also some practical, things.
Mhm.
And that end of life, the last Ecstatic Days movie absolutely changed everything. And I have set an intention, once I'm settled in the Eco Village, to create a community supported end of life care place here in Pittsburgh. And I've already started talking to people about being on the volunteer team. And this, I mean, I've done a lot of different workshops and things, but this kind of put everything together for me. It was like for me, a connect the dots, and also tune into what is behind that, what's the process. So I just wanted to send my gratitude for you and everyone to create this safe container for me to be able, I'm in my head a lot, and I feel like I've been more in my heart. And I'm going to get a little emotional, but I feel like this has been a really safe place to do this work. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The piece that really stuck out for me was the beginning where you said, I'm embarrassed, but it's basically an entire revamp. Yeah. Yeah, it's an incomplete revamp. And what I hear you saying is coming from a deeper place, coming from a different place. And that just touches me so deeply, because that's my hope in this course is, yes, empowered, yes, DIY, yes, coming at this, but like, can we have an intimate relationship with this process? Right? And I really hear you reflecting that. Thank you. Susan, I see your hand. I'd love for you to speak about your intentions.
Yeah, I just want to third the motion and say that, when I signed up for the class, it was, it was kind of like I was going to do my taxes. I was going to do my death papers, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
it turned out to be a whole other thing, And
yes.
I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I actually have a lot of enthusiasm for the whole process now.
Mm-hmm. Right, because it's woven into other areas of your understanding. Yeah.
It's my life.
Your life.
My death is my life.
Totally. Yeah, death and taxes. I love it. I love it. Thank you. Carla.
Well, those are my two main procrastination areas is death and taxes. Um, I go back to the when you were setting the 3 Ps on the first session, the thing of us being pioneers. And I really want to share my appreciation that Lee, you're such a good role model for seeing, like when I watch how you work, it's that we don't have to become experts to be pioneers, and we also don't have to have an audience that is totally open to what we have to say. We can do it in like small bits, and using humor, using other sensory experiences like movement, watching movies, a more gentle approach to just trying to do a mental re-education, of the public.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I really appreciate that. And then the other thing is, I felt like in week 2 that if I didn't move to North Carolina, I wouldn't have any way to have this kind of supportive deaf community that seems to be springing up there. But there are other options. That there are other places. All I need is really one other person
Mhm, mhm.
who has similar values in order to get this movement going.
Mhm.
I know I've always been a reluctant leader, so thank you for showing me that this can be built slowly and with some fun too.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Yeah, sort of start where you are. And I love that you only need one other person to make a deaf community, to be able to have a deaf conversation, create deaf literacy in your world. That's beautiful. Thank you. Yes, Peggy, you will get an email. I can do that with these last set of recordings and just like list everything. Because I probably will take the link off of the website and then you'll have everything in an email. And I don't take those down. So yeah, those are evergreen. You'll have them forever as long as I'm alive. I suppose if I die, somebody's gonna have to maintain those links, but that's a good thing. It's a good point for me to make in my own end of life stuff.
Put that in your death
Exactly.
wish thing. Somebody
Exactly.
takes over.
Put it on my my financial person. Totally. Right. Let's see what else I want to do in the last few minutes here. Okay, let me share screen. C.S. Lewis says this really thought-provoking quote, which I love. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. We'll have to wait and find out because we won't know. So I do have an evaluation link. If you want to do a written Google form evaluation, I will send it in the email and I will also put it here in the chat, and it's also on my page, my resource page. And they do help me. I'm finally, yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about where my heart is at right now. I'm just sort of emerging, which is I've always done all of this myself. I've just run whatever little marketing I do. I have my little newsletter list. I've done my own website, and I'm just really starting to feel guided through my own deeper work. I'm starting to feel guided to sort of hire a support team. And I have a dear friend who is going to help me with sort of my strategic thinking. So funny that, I ran a nonprofit for years. I've done this for other people ad nauseum, but it's hard to do it for yourself. Like it's hard to be your own strategic planning guide. And so I'm hiring some other folks, and I'm just really feeling inspired to, make this more of a significant piece of what I'm offering this year. So it looks like I'm going to do a 13-week series because I really want more integration time. Like each one of these topics, we could have talked for hours together on. And I want to give more of that space because my sense really is that we integrate more when we can process. And the group gets so bonded and we fall in love with each other, and then there's just not as much time to talk. I've been really reluctant about like, oh, are people going to want to do this for 13 weeks? And I'm really starting to feel like, like we've just been together 6 and we're just starting to warm up in a way. We're just starting to find our way with each other, and that 2 hours a week, So I'm going to experiment with this. I'd love your feedback on that. There'll be some time here. If anyone's willing to give me a video testimonials, I'm going to beef up my page, and video testimonials are always nice to have. What I'm offering in exchange for a video testimonial that I can really use, which is like really sort of short, to the point, articulate, really nice lighting, nice background, is I'm happy to spend, I'm doing a 30-minute session with me. If you want to submit me a video testimonial and it really works, I'm happy to do a one-on-one 30-minute session with you about whatever you need around your end of life stuff. So that's my offer to you. And since you all are just coming out of this course and feeling alive with it, you all are the sort of the best candidates right now. So that will help me sort of get up and to the next level. And then I said I would offer you all half off this course. So I'm going to get you a promo code for that if you want to do the course again. All that's going to be happening in the next couple of months. And I love having people who have done the course before or who are end of life literate. And I think if there's more time, we can bring in more voices of folks who know what they're talking about, like all of you. And, Brenda has so much to say and offer. And like, I just really want those voices in the course. So I think the longer course is going to be better for that. But if I'm going to stop sharing right now, and if you all have any ideas about any of that, I'd love to hear them right now. Just give a few minutes for that. Do you have any input for me about the length or the style or any of those thoughts? Carla.
When you offered the end of life preparation class before with your colleague, we had to, I think you had to commit to like several hours over the weekend. And I find this format that you have now, where it's 2 hours, so that we can also do the rest of our lives, 2 hours per session. I think that's a lot more doable, even with the longer time commitment to 13 weeks. So that's what I would definitely sign up for that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to offer something.
Please.
I felt that it was really hard for me to get started with, I don't know how to create a document, saving. I'm not that great with technology. I always had secretaries and assistants in my business career.
Got it.
So here I am alone. I don't know how to create a document that I can forward to each of my children and put inside all the files and so on. So there's a young man who I hired as my assistant, and he went on to the websites and everything you sent us, and he downloaded it all, and he set me up. And I just want to say, I said to him, I think he has a future working in conjunction with you, that you could recommend him. And then other elder baby boomers like me could have assistants, and that box you told us about. Like, how do we make that box virtually and be able to send it to our loved ones? This is a little bit too much for me. And so I think if you offered these services of an assistant, there might be other elders like me who could benefit from technological support, and he could earn money.
Yeah, I really love that. And what that speaks to me, because part of this is I want to start, out of this is I want to start doing one-on-one consulting, but I'm really best used as the sort of spiritual guide. And I'm not really best used with talking about the details of the Knox box, but I could be working with someone else who's really interested in that. and helping people hold their hands around some of these processes, and also setting expectations of what's important to come into the class with some basic knowledge. That's a really good disclaimer of like, yeah, it's probably good for you to have some support in your life for this stuff. So it's really helpful feedback. Thank you, Michael.
Really technical support
Yeah.
with loving care, of course.
Yes, yes, thank you. Any other thoughts around that? You can also send me email or an audio text or something if you have thoughts that burble up later and you want to pass them along. I'm very open to that. Okay. All right. Well, let's spend our last few minutes. Let's spend our last few minutes just taking each other in, appreciating this time, this snippet in time, and our beautiful time together, which will never again be repeated because every moment is fresh and new and born. So beautiful to see you all. And a shout out to Tracy and Tessa, who are not here right now, who will be maybe listening to this and seeing our love later on. Any last sharings from the heart? Any last sharings from the heart? Meg, we haven't heard from you today. Linda, we haven't heard from you. Go ahead, Meg.
Feeling kind of quiet, and I'm in someone else's home, so that's why. But I will share that I'm this afternoon headed to a 5-day drop-in with a death doula to just continue this learning.
What is that drop-in? Is it a workshop?
No, she invited me to come and stay with her and talk and explore.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm also sort of birthing something for next year, which is still in the formation stages, but it's far enough along for me to give you the outline of it. It's like a mystery school, a death and tantra mystery school. And it's really an internal process, internal contemplation, but just a really deep dive in what I'm calling embodied dying, which is how do we get here in these forms? How do we get fully here and then begin to build trust that this form is going to know how to die, right? Really embracing the mystery of that. So stay tuned for more of that. It's, sometimes these things come through me and it's as much of a transmission for me as it is for everybody else who goes along on the ride with me. As I don't really know what's happening. I'm just willing to hold the container for it.
I just want to say thank you. And I have been just finishing up a very big process which demanded a lot of creativity and creating processes, and have been very observant about myself through the process and see a lot of similarities. So thank you. I appreciate so much all that you've put together and your ability and skills to share it. It's really a gift. So thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, you understand the creative process. It's an ongoing, rolling series of waves. Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. So Susan is serious about her reunion suggestion. Susan, would you be willing to coordinate that and maybe put a date on the calendar and send us a link and we can show up?
Oh, let me give that some consideration. I guess when you send out the emails, I can see everybody's emails, right? In
Yes.
there.
Yeah, the more recent ones, we started sharing emails about halfway through or so. So everybody's emails are on there. Yep.
Okay. Let me give that some thought.
Okay. Denise.
Oh, is my sound is on?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I want to thank you so much. You've done a great job, and I've learned a lot. I'm actually looking forward to the actual. It's hard. That's hard to. It's a weird thing to say, but yes, I feel like everything's going to go well for our deaths, my husband and I. And this class is really making that happen. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yay. So grateful.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You know, if our deaths can be, you know, moving on the spectrum towards ecstatic, like that is just delightful for me. You know, that's my great inquiry is, can it be ecstatic? And I think part of the film, you know, I don't think my partner would mind saying this. Saturday night was the first time he saw the film, and he was really, really impacted by it in a sort of challenging way. I mean, what was alive for him in that process was, is it okay that I wouldn't want to have gone through that much pain? Like the film sort of talks, you know, he went through he was a young guy, 36 years old, and like went through so much intervention and so much pain and 2 weeks of not eating and drinking. I mean, there's a lot of themes in this film that are things we've touched on. And my partner was like, I wouldn't do that. Like I would want to check out way sooner and earlier. And like, I'm like, well, that's your truth. You know, there's no should here. And I think that's important for us to remember when we see this incredible film. If we had a death literate culture, there'd be thousands of these options, thousands of these film experiences, so we could see all of the different ways, and then we could pick and choose what was resonant for us. And I was like, sweetie, you don't have to endure that much. That's a choice you can make right now, at least with the access we have to pharmaceuticals and other things, you can make different choices. And as we get more right to die focused in our culture, there's going to be choices about how to end. And so, you know, exploring all of this is what's in front of us. Meg.
I wanted to offer one little anecdote. I had a conversation with one of my most beloved elder friend teachers, Joanna Macy. And at the end of the conversation this time, she said, I want you to know that, you know, one of these days you'll get the message, Joanna has died. And I want you to know that I am just kind of excited about it. And I'm so curious. And so when you get that message, I don't want you to say, oh, how terrible. I want you to say, how wonderful for Joanna. She was so excited for this.
Oh, I love that you have a friendship with Joanna Macy. She's one of my favorites too, deeply influenced by her. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, she's a beautiful one. Yay, Joanna has died. Yay. Yeah, what could that look like? Death celebration experiences, death ritual celebration, and grief. We need them both. We need them both. Oh, grief is a celebration of life, for sure. All right, beloveds, as usual, I will stay on for a few minutes here. Anything else that wants to be shared, and go if you must. And so amazing to be with you all. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, Brenda.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's been great.
Bye.
Just
Thank
great.
you,
It's been an
everybody.
honor. It's been an
Bye,
honor.
everyone. Bye, Misha.
Bye, Denise. Let's talk soon. Stay in touch.
Yes, let's talk again.
Thank you,
Okay.
beloveds.
Blessings.
Blessings. Bye. I'm out of here. Let's leave the meeting.
All right, looks like everyone's leaving today.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Very
Linda.
grateful.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Much love. Bye.
Bye.